Hey guys, I'm Kimmy LC and this is Marley. He's my almost 5-year-old Rottweiler. We got him back in 2018, so I had him a few years now. He was 8 months old when we first got him. Got him from, it was meant to just be a private sale, ended up being a bit more of a rescue. Family, household that he was with, they weren't treating him very well at all, and as soon as we saw the state of him, we couldn't leave him there. Whether we kept him or not, we just couldn't leave him there. As you can see, decided to keep him because he's just an absolute soft bundle of cuddles, and all he wants to do is play and have cuddles and fuss, as you can see. So I'll pop a few pictures in here as to what he used to look like when we first got him at 8 months old. So a lot of people didn't believe us when we said he was Rottweiler. His muzzle didn't really fit his face at the time. He's absolutely definitely grown into it now, but certainly back then it didn't quite look right. Okay. So with that house, he looked very skinny. We didn't receive any food when we took him home with us, so they'd made a comment about how they weren't getting any more dogs, and we're like, great, we'll take everything then. If you're not getting any more, you won't need any of it to use for the next dog, we'll take it all. We were given 2 bowls, a collar and a lead. The lead was a tiny little retractable thing that you would maybe put a chihuahua on, and that was it. The collar was so thin and small and it just was barely staying together. Bowls were fine, great, but we got no bed, no food, nothing. So like I said, he was quite skinny, very skinny in fact, and they were trying to claim that the reason they had no food was because he'd just eaten the last amount of food. Which, okay, fine, that is a possibility, and it might just be that they hadn't been feeding him the correct amount, hence he'd got skinny. But it seemed, once we got him home, it seemed very much like he just maybe wasn't being fed properly, that he hadn't just been given his last bit of food, because as soon as we got home he absolutely scoffed down the food we gave him, so he was still hungry. While we were at this family's house, when we first went to see him, we weren't allowed in. It was very much, we stayed outside. Marley was let out the front door, and he was acting as if he'd never seen outside of his own front door. You know, maybe once or twice, and that was it, if he'd ever seen it. He really didn't seem like he knew what he was doing. He was incredibly nervous, just wanted to sniff everything, wasn't really going very far either. Once he then sort of started showing some interest to me, that was it. He wouldn't go back into the house. As soon as I started giving him some fuss and love, he just did not want to go back into that house. We also know he was beaten. He's got scars all over his muzzle. He also was beaten in front of us. So it wasn't the adults, it was the kids who did it. But for a 2-year-old to do what she did and put the force that she did into that hit, she had seen other people doing it. She'd seen adults or older siblings doing it. With the family, the dad was very big. He was, Marley, we don't want your bum in it, thanks. So the dad was 6 foot something, wasn't a very pleasant person. We saw him purely when it came to money. Don't forget to subscribe, like, leave a comment and hit those notifications so you can keep up to date with all the videos we do. So we only really saw him when it came to the money. And the only reason that we even had to see him was purely because the price that they were trying to ask us for, we insisted that they took at least £100 off. We pushed it down £100 because while talking, we found out that, bearing in mind he's 8 months old, he hadn't seen a vet, hadn't been and had any of his vaccinations, hadn't been microchipped. He'd had nothing done that he should have had done by this point. In the UK, by 8 months old, that's actually a legal requirement that he's been chipped by that point. So we knew that within the first couple of days of us having him, realistically, we needed to take him to go see a vet. Well, obviously that's going to cost us quite a bit of money. So we were happy to pay that, but we pushed to then have £100 dropped off, because we were having to go off and pay for all these vet bills that we shouldn't have had to have paid for. It was stuff that he should have already had long before he was 8 months old. You know, it is something you shouldn't have had to have forked out for. So we tried to discuss this with the mum. She was very much in the sense of, Dad does the money in the house. So that's why we then had to speak to the father of the family. Again, not a huge issue. We didn't mind having to speak to somebody else, but that was the reason why we had to see him, why he had to come down and actually discuss anything with us. So they did agree, which was great. He basically snatched the money out of our hand and just basically ran straight back upstairs. We saw him long enough for him to come downstairs, say yes, take the money and go back upstairs. He really didn't care at all. And the way he was acting, we would be very, very surprised if he was sober. Through whatever, but sober. So yeah, that was our one and only interaction with him. Well, once we got Marley home, he had a bit of a fear of men. Almost every man. There was only a couple that he was okay with, which even that took, you know, a minute or two for him to become comfortable and to be happy with them. Otherwise, he had a massive fear of men. There was also 2 women that he was not very happy with meeting, who were 6 foot something. So obviously I'd mentioned about how their young girl must have learnt it from somewhere. We are pretty adamant that it was from the dad, mostly. Obviously there might have been others as well, but we're pretty certain it was from her dad that she learnt this. Because in that one little bit we saw of him, he was 6 foot something. It wasn't a skinny stick of a 6 foot something. He did have a little bit of weight behind him, not huge, just a little bit, which made sense for the sort of people that Marley was showing fear to. Women he was absolutely fine, so I don't think really the mum was doing too much, or if she was, it was nothing compared to the dad. And kids he absolutely loved. He was a bit jumpy around them, but more when they were quiet coming up to him and he didn't realise that they'd started coming in the direction of him, he'd be a little bit jumpy, but that was it. But yeah, so that was one of his biggest fears, and that's the reason behind it that we think. I'm not sure if I've mentioned, but he does have a lot of scars all over his muzzle. So we think that was one of the big things that he was getting. We think he was also beaten. So not just the muzzle, but full-blown hit. I mean, you saw me tapping him a little bit. That was literally a tap. But he likes that as part of his fuss. It's it's completely different. So he's now asking for more, but it's completely different from hitting a dog and beating a dog. So he did unfortunately go through that a little bit. You could tell with how he was acting when we first got him, but he's all over that, or as much as he can be. Well, that's it from us, guys, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.